Coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, as we prepare for Saturday's Week 16 game versus Steelers, we'll go over the final injury report for the week, plus an interesting nugget from the NFL on the first 15 weeks of the season and what to look for in Saturday's game. Your calls and texts will close out the show. It's all coming up on Friday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, December 23rd, 2022.
Just win. Just win. Just win. Just win.
The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won. And won. And won. And won. And won.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen each and every day. Remember, you can find the Locked On Raider podcast free and available on all platforms, and that does include YouTube. Definitely appreciate everyone who's been checking us out by way of YouTube. Definitely appreciate my tag team partner, my man Ari, who's been making sure we're on YouTube each and every day, trying to keep me on point. At Ari Produces on Twitter. If you ever want to reach out to him, thank him, or even give him a follow, you can make sure to do that. But definitely thanks to my man for making sure we're up on YouTube each and every day. Today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast is being sponsored by BetterHelp. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It's professional therapy done securely online, available to people worldwide. And they have a special offer for all listeners of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Get 10% off your first month at BetterHelp.com/Locked On. Let's go ahead and jump into today's show as we close out the week really strong, prepare for, well, tomorrow's game. That's the beautiful thing about it, right? Don't have to wait too long to see the Silver and Black in action as they're playing Christmas Eve, Saturday night. It's going to be a lot of fun. 5:15 on the West Coast, 8:15 on the East Coast, and it's going to be cold there in Pittsburgh, so that's something to think about. Matter of fact, if you're trying to get last-minute tickets, what I've been hearing is that there's tickets available for like $20. And this is the reason why. Right before anyone says, no way, think about this. It's cold as ice. It's supposed to be like, what, -11, -15 as far as the wind chill factor goes. It's Christmas Eve. It's nighttime. It's 8:15 on the East Coast. So, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why, but I wonder how the passing of Franco Harris and the celebrations that they're supposed to have for him at halftime, I wonder how that's going to affect it, if there's going to be more people that decide to go. But apparently, if you're looking for last-minute tickets, you can get them for about $20, $35, very reasonable prices. But again, the elements is what you're going to have to fight, and I'm sorry, I'm not built like that, so I can't do it. But I know plenty of people that could. I'm just not one of them. So if you're looking for last-minute tickets, you can get some right now. But let's go ahead and get into today's show. Want to go over the injury report for Thursday. As far as the Raiders are concerned, they send one out on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Then on Saturday, about 90 minutes before kickoff, we'll find out who's active and who's inactive. As of right now, the only person that's officially out for the Raiders is cornerback Rock Ya-Sin, who's been dealing with the knee injury, and he's been out for a few games now. Not a big surprise that he's not going to play tomorrow night in Pittsburgh. Everyone else is pretty much questionable. From Alex Bars, the guard, with the knee injury, Jackson Barton, the tackle, with the back injury, Andrew Billings, the defensive tackle, with the fibula injury, Darian Butler, the linebacker, with a quadricep injury, Dylan Parham with the knee injury. Of course, he's the guard, the rookie guard out of Memphis, running back Zamir White with the ankle injury. All those guys are questionable. Guard or tackle Jermaine Illuminor dealing with the wrist injury. He practiced fully on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so he looks like he's good to go. And safety Deron Harmon with the shoulder and neck injury, limited Tuesday, limited on Wednesday, full participant on Thursday, so he's good to go. One guy that I've been talking about all week not being on the injury report, running back Josh Jacobs. That is good because they're going to need him on Saturday in Pittsburgh where it's going to be cold, and I think there's going to be a heavy emphasis on the run game. So a very good dose of Josh Jacobs will be good for the Silver and Black. But that's the injury report for the Raiders. As far as the Pittsburgh Steelers go, they have nobody that's already officially ruled out. And for the most part, I think everyone on this injury report really who didn't participate, most of them were because of rest, right? Cam Hayward, defensive tackle, because of rest. Larry Ogunjobi, defensive lineman, one day I'll get his name right, because of rest. Yeah, he didn't participate on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, but he'll be good to go come Saturday. Let's see. I had offensive lineman J.C. Hassenauer. He didn't participate because of rest as well. George Pickens, this is an interesting one. The wide receiver, he had an illness on Thursday, so that's why he didn't participate. He wasn't listed on Tuesday or Wednesday, so that's kind of one to notice and pay attention to. Linebacker Miles Jack, he's actually questionable, but he did fully participate on Thursday, so I'm sure he's going to be good to go. Also, safety Terrell Edmonds with the hamstring injury. He's questionable. He didn't participate all week long, so that's something to pay attention to. And then wide receiver Deontay Johnson with a toe injury was limited on Tuesday, did not participate on Wednesday or Thursday. He is also questionable for the game tomorrow. So there you go. That's the injury report for both the Raiders and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, Rocky Yassin is the one officially out for the Raiders, and everybody else is questionable. And Josh Jacobs is not on the list at all. So that is a good thing. Wanted to pass along this little nugget, and I'm not trying to make excuses for the Raiders. Would not do that. I mean, you are what your record is. They're 6-8. They've had some massive collapses throughout the course of the season, lost games that they should have won. We know that. But I did want to pass along this nugget that I got from NFL Communications. They send me emails each and every week, and a lot of times they'll have some nuggets on there that I find to be pretty interesting. And whenever I find them, I like to bring them to the table. Sometimes it's about a player, like last week, it was about Devontae Adams and Derek Carr and a certain amount of yards that they can get. They'll all of a sudden achieve a certain goal. Well, this is just about the games in general through 15 weeks of the regular season. So I thought this was pretty interesting. The number 44, remember that one. Keep that in your memory bank. 44 is the number of games in which a team overcame a deficit of at least 10 points to win this season. The most such games through week 15 all time. Again, not trying to make an excuse for the Raiders because they've had some collapses. They've lost 4 games where they had double-digit leads, and 3 of them were at least 17-point leads. So that's no excuse because the rest of the league is doing it. But what we've been talking about throughout the course of the week is parity. And just notice that it's happening all across the league. So it's just something that's going on more times than not this year. Again, this is the most all-time that it's ever happened through week 15 in the NFL season. 44, the number of games in which a team overcame a deficit of at least 10 points to win this season. And then week 15 marked the first time in NFL history that 3 teams came back to win after trailing by 17 or more points in a single week. Minnesota, they had the big comeback. They were down 33 points at halftime. They came back to win. That's an NFL record. Cincinnati, they were down 17 points. They came back and win. Jacksonville, they were down 17 points, and they came back to win. So again, I mean, it's not going to excuse the Raiders. They did what they did, and they're 6-8. They are who their record says they are. They could be a lot better. They should be a lot better, but just know it's something that's going on all across the NFL. Final little nugget I have for you for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, news and notes of the day. I mentioned this the other day about Sunday Ticket was probably going to find a new home. Well, it officially did on Thursday. YouTube TV and Sunday Ticket have come together. The NFL put out a statement saying starting with the 2023 season, all out-of-market Sunday afternoon NFL games will be available on YouTube TV and YouTube primetime channels. The National Football League announced a multi-year agreement with Google, granting YouTube TV and YouTube primetime channels the right to exclusively distribute NFL Sunday Ticket to consumers in the United States, starting with the 2023 NFL season. This strategic partnership will provide fans greater access to NFL Sunday Ticket while tapping into the best of YouTube's technology and product innovation. So again, this is starting next season. The Sunday Ticket will be available on 2 of YouTube's growing subscription businesses as an add-on package on YouTube TV and standalone a la carte on YouTube primetime channels. Of course, that's going to consist of all out-of-market Sunday regular season NFL games. Fox, CBS, NFL Sunday Tickets allow fans in the United States the ability to follow all their favorite teams and players no matter where they live. Updated NFL Sunday Ticket product features and functionality will be announced ahead of the 2023 NFL season. So there it is right there. There's no real announcement on how much that's going to cost. The subscription is going to cost. But 2 things that I find interesting. Well, one, YouTube TV is really tapping into the NFL, and that's awesome. They're also, by the way, paying $2 billion a year for the rights to this. Yeah, you heard me. $2 billion with a B. They're paying the NFL for the rights to this each and every year. But the YouTube TV is doing their thing, and then the standalone a la carte on YouTube primetime channels makes me feel like it's just going to be the Sunday Ticket that you can buy. And again, don't know exactly how much that's going to be, but seems to be, the direction that everyone's going. You see what Thursday Night Football is doing. We just saw that last night. Amazon Prime, that's a streaming service. You're going to start seeing more streaming service than you will, just regular TV channels. And so there you go. YouTube TV is dipping their toes into the market, spending a lot of money with the NFL. So that's what I got for you for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Coming up in segment number 2, what will I be looking for in this game? I'll talk about the defense. I'll talk about the offense, look at special teams, and hit you with the overall expectations for this game on Saturday. Raiders and Steelers in cold, cold Pittsburgh. We'll get that in segment number 2 after I tell you about a couple great sponsors here of the Locked On Raiders podcast, including Turo. Turo is the world's largest car sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community, a local host. You can browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. You can book a spacious SUV if that's what you want, maybe a minivan for a family road trip, classic or a luxury car for a special event, birthday, or a holiday. Find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget and just need to get from A to B. Test drive that new electrical vehicle, the one that you've had your eye on. See how it fits your everyday lifestyle. And many Turo hosts can even deliver that car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. I also want to let you know that, especially this holiday season, that driving high is considered driving under the influence. That's right. Driving under the influence of marijuana is against the law in every state, even in states where marijuana is legal. That means driving high can get you a DUI. And if you think law enforcement officers can't tell when you're driving high, you're wrong. Your friends could tell. Your coworkers could tell. You know your parents could tell. Everyone could tell. So what makes you think that law enforcement officers don't know when you're driving high? Driving under the influence of marijuana could slow your response time and change how you perceive time and speed. So even if you think you're fine to drive when you're high, you're not. Because the bottom line is if you feel different, you're going to drive different. And driving high is driving under the influence. So remember, you drive high, you get a DUI that is paid for by NHTSA. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. What am I going to be looking for in this game on Saturday besides a W, right? Wouldn't it be nice to see the Raiders go into Pittsburgh and pick up a W, get their second win in a row, and then return home for the final 2 games of the season, hosting the Niners and hosting the Chiefs? It would be really nice. Well, they can do it. They've got more talent, as you heard on the crossover edition when Chris Carter joined the show on Thursday. They have more talent than the Steelers do. They could win. If this was on an even field or not an even field, a neutral field, like in the middle of anywhere, I would say that, yeah, no doubt, the Raiders are going to go win this game. But it's in the elements. It's in Pittsburgh. Of course, there's the emotions riding with the passing of Franco Harris, the Hall of Famer, who is going to finally get his flowers, going to be able to smell them, be the third Pittsburgh Steeler to get his jersey retired officially, which is criminal, right? I mean, if you're going to retire jerseys, why did you wait that long to retire Franco Harris's jersey? And so the week that he's going to get all that is the week that he passes, and that sucks. There's no other way for me to say it than that sucks. It really does. But what I bring to the table and what I bring it to this table is because I feel like there's going to be a lot of emotions in that stadium from the crowd for sure. But I think that Mike Tomlin's going to use, that little bit of juice in the locker room to try to get those guys amped up. Now, I'm not saying that's something that they can sustain throughout the course of the game, like all 4 quarters, that extra juice. Whatever Mike Tomlin says, he's always a really good motivator anyway. So, they're going to come out the locker room with their hair on fire. They got to be careful not to have their hair too on fire. To be too amped up. There's a time where you can let that adrenaline kick in way too much, and you're just basically you wear yourself out. So they have to make sure that they channel that. But I do think they're going to come out with a little bit extra something out of the locker room. The Raiders are going to have to weather that storm, right? And once you're able to weather that storm, kind of like in a boxing match, when you see a fighter come out in the first round or the first couple of rounds and just slugging the guy and bop, 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 bop. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, that fighter weathered that storm. Now it's time to go. That's what the Raiders are going to have to do. They're going to have to take that first few, a couple rounds of body blows and then be ready to get at it. But what am I going to be looking for in the game? Let's go ahead and jump into it. I'm going to start with the defense because I think that's where this game is going to be won or lost by the Raiders. And I think that the biggest key in this game and what I really want to see them do is improve off what they did last week against the Patriots and stop the run. Slow down the run. Don't let Najee Harris go off. Make Kenny Pickett beat you, right? Because Ramondre Stevenson for the Patriots ran all over the Raiders. Over 170 yards. He was AFC Offensive Player of the Week. I mean, he had himself a day. The Raiders cannot allow Najee Harris to do that. If he does that, the Raiders are going to be cooked. It's going to be a long day at the office, right? If he all of a sudden gets off and he's running and the Raiders defense can't stop him and they're allowing him to get 5, 6, 7 yards of carry like they allowed Ramondre Stevenson, just call it church. Call it good night. 1, it's going to keep the Raiders offense on the sideline. And 2, it's going to put them in a bad position. And if they get down too much, then all of a sudden they're going to have to throw the ball around the yard. And I think that the Raiders are going to have to run the ball as well in this game to have an opportunity to win it. But they've got to stop the run the best they can. I'm not saying just eliminate the run, but I mean, I really ideally think that Najee Harris has to have less than 100 yards for the Raiders to have a chance to win this game on Saturday. Offensively, got to protect Derek Carr. You got to establish a run game of your own and take advantage when possible, the Steelers' suspect secondary. What do I mean by protect Derek Carr? The offensive line. They could possibly have two backup guards in there in Jordan Meredith. He came in for Dylan Parham last week and didn't look too hot. And then Hronis Grasu, who was in for Alex Bars, he didn't look too hot either. So those guys, they could possibly be out there again if Parham and Bars don't come back. So you got to be able to protect. They got to be better than they were on Sunday. But also part of protecting Derek Carr is, like I said, establish that run game of your own. You got a healthy Josh Jacobs. You're going to need a healthy Josh Jacobs. And then once you establish the run, I think you're going to have to establish the run first before you can really get cooking with the passing game. Take advantage of the secondary. The Steelers have a suspect secondary, and the Raiders have Devontae Adams, a healthy Darren Waller, and a healthy Hunter Renfrow. Got to take advantage, especially down in the red zone. You could take advantage down in the red zone. That's going to be a plus because kicking is going to be a struggle. As cold as it's going to be, that ball's going to be hard. It's not going to be as easy for Daniel Carlson to roll out there and go and kick a 50-yard field goal. It's going to be tough. The elements are going to play a factor in how well the kicking game goes. So the red zone, the Raiders are going to have to find a way to capitalize. If it's on the ground with Josh Jacobs or through the air to Darren Waller, to Devontae Adams, hell, Mac Hollins. Let me throw Mac Hollins in there because he's doing really well when it comes to the red zone. It's a guy that Derek Carr is very comfortable throwing the ball to. He said the other day when he met with the media, I trust Mac Hollins. So we know that's a big deal. When Derek Carr trusts a wide receiver, that's when he's going to throw you the ball. He trusts Waller. He trusts Renfrow. Obviously, he trusts Adams. He also trusts Hollins. That's 4 different weapons. So they've got to be effective in the red zone. I want to see him run the ball and pound the ball with Josh Jacobs in the red zone. But you know what? If that ain't working, throw that thing. I don't think that the Steelers secondary can hang with all those guys if Derek Carr drops back to throw the ball in the red zone. But the offensive line, it goes back to them. They're going to have to protect DC. Special teams. Again, the kicking game is going to be affected by the weather, so you can't send Carlson out for the really long kicks. Have to be smart with that. AJ Cole, keep flipping the field when given the chance, right? I like what he's doing, kicking the ball when he's punting. I like that Mac Hollins has been covering those punts really well. So I think that they just need to keep that up. But again, the kicking game is going to be affected by the weather. So AJ Cole might not have the best day punting just because, again, the elements are going to be difficult. And with the fact that the elements may be difficult and the kicking game may not be so great, maybe this is the game Amir Abdullah gets his return. I've been calling it for a while. I said he's going to take one to the house before the season's over. This could be the one because the weather, because the elements. Maybe guys aren't able to, cut on a dime like they want to. And maybe Amir Abdullah can get that extra step that he needs to take one to the house. I do feel like he's going to get one before the season's over. They got 3 games. Why not get one? Wouldn't it be nice to see him get one, get that special teams kick return for a touchdown for the Raiders? They haven't had one in a very long time. Would love to see one come Saturday night. That'd be a nice early Christmas gift for the silver and black. So that's the special teams part. Overall, got to play smart, disciplined football. You can't have 13 penalties for 90 yards. You just can't. That's ridiculous. Especially pre-snap penalties. Can't have those. False starts, delay of games. Can't have those. That's not okay. And you know what? A lot of that, and I didn't really mention it throughout the course of this week, a lot of those delay of games, that's on Derek Carr. He getting to the line of scrimmage and he's getting too cute. If you're going to call out the mic like he always does when he gets to the line of scrimmage, that's fine, but do it quickly. All right, so-and-so's the mic. Okay, cool, let's go. Right? But you get up there, you start dancing around, you start talking too much, all right, we're good. Man, just get it done. Get it done. Delay of games shouldn't happen, especially at Allegiant Stadium. Well, I know this game's in Pittsburgh, but those are delay of games at Allegiant Stadium were not okay. And then got to weather the emotional storm that the Steelers might come out of the locker room with. It's that simple. I mean, they're going to come out with some juice. You got to be able to match that juice. So there you go. That's what I got for you as far as what I'll be looking for in the game come Sunday. What's on your mind? 707-654-4693. That's the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line. We'll get to that with your calls and texts coming up in segment number 3 after I tell you about betonline.net, your number one source for sports betting information, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. Pro football, college bowl season, basketball. They've got it all at betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, clearly you do. You can find them as well at betonline.net. They're the fastest and easiest way to get your betting information on. All you got to do is head to the website today on your laptop or your mobile device. betonline.net. That is where the game starts. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and text straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with Mort calling out of Oregon. He's calling to talk about Tuesday's show and share his thoughts on it. Here he is, Mort in Oregon.
Yo, what up, Q? This is Mort from Oregon calling in. Just finished your Tuesday show, and just wanted to comment and thank you for everything you do. And I couldn't agree more. You know, right now, your show on Tuesday highlighted the parity in the NFL, but I think that's true for all sports that have a salary cap, even sports with a soft cap like the NBA, where you got a luxury tax. You know, any team is ready to go from a rebuild stage to a competitor. I think the big glaring difference and the one commonality that you see in the NFL is that you get great leadership in the front office, in the coaching, and at the QB position. And when you've got studs across the MC2A from small colleges, from, you know, the litany of players coming out of the SEC these days, every team is ready to turn that corner, so to speak. But where you really see, you know, the personnel department gets upgraded every year through management in the draft, and that comes through the head coach in the front office, the head coach making good game day decisions. But where you win games in the NFL is at the quarterback position, and Derek Carr is good enough to be that guy. He's no better or worse than a Phil Simms or a Mark Rippon or a Boomer Esiason. And here, of course, I'm aging myself a little bit, but those guys weren't elite quarterbacks. They were exceptional leaders who made plays when it counted, part of good franchises that made good decisions and built a squad capable of winning, but more than anything, had a locker room that was unified, a morale group, a leadership group that just at the end of the day got wins. And when you look at the NFL, and like I said, there's a ton of teams on the precipice of success. It just takes that small bit of leadership group. So I'm with you, man. I'm staying positive with this Raiders group. It's been incredibly frustrating because we're so darn close, and we've been that way for years, dating back to the 90s. So we're right on the edge, but I'm with you. You know, there's an outside chance of playoffs this year, but I'm not banking on that. Let's just end on a positive note, keep building this roster up. Hopefully Derek Carr can take that next step in terms of maturity, you know, body language, leading this group, you know, taking that next step as not necessarily elite quarterback, but a top tier quarterback that can put us over the top and be a real legitimate threat to win a Super Bowl and not just on the cusp of making playoffs every year. So once again, brother, thanks for all you do, man. Looking forward to watching the Raiders in a cold, snowy game against our deep-rooted rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers, this weekend, Christmas Eve and all. So happy holidays to all of you at Raider Nation, and much love from Mort from Oregon. Thanks.
Mort, thanks for the call, my man. You bring up some good points about parity and how teams can make a move here and there and be so much better, and that goes for a lot of teams. But, you know, to me, that gives the Raiders hope. It gives the Raiders hope because they found ways to win 6 games, and they should have won more. But I feel like that they can make a move here, make a move there, and make that team that much better. Like they have the framework, as far as I'm concerned, to be a really good team. They just need to tighten it up. They just need to polish it up, shine it up just a little bit better. That's what makes me feel a lot better about the Raiders situation. It's not, you know, where it wants to be. It's not where I want it to be. It's not going to make me feel better in the offseason when you're watching other teams in the playoffs and you're not watching the Raiders, you know, well, they're close. No, I just feel like, okay, if they have a smart offseason, Dave Ziegler, Champ Kelly, Josh McDaniels go into the lab, handle their business in the offseason, and figure out, okay, this is where we need to focus in on. This is what we need to do. And if they're able to do that, they can come back strong with a solid team in 2023. That's what makes me feel better. And I know fans don't want to hear it because, well, it's been so long since the Raiders have been a consistently good team. So, it sucks to say be patient. You know, nobody likes to hear be patient. But thank you so much for that call, Mort. I do appreciate you. Next up, I got a text from Tadreese in New Jersey. He says, Q, Tadreese from New Jersey again with a shorter text. Thanks for being family for us. I have my favorite ESPN show, PTI, in which I call them Uncle Tony and Wilbon. When I told my 13-year-old you were Uncle Q, he said, you're too young for that. You're more like a cousin, LOL. Fridays, you give the keys of the game or what you'll be looking for live at the game. 1, heavy dose of Josh Jacobs. 2, 3 huge shock plays, catch defense off guard and go deep to Adams and Waller. 3, Max wrecked the game even in the running game. Strip, fumble, recovery. As mentioned, I'll be at the game with my oldest son, so thanks, Q, for reading my text on Tuesday, and thanks to Raider Rob for giving us some tips for moving around in Pittsburgh that we'll be using for sure. Parking at the Rivers Casino Garage sounds like a plan. Raider Nation is truly family. Just win, baby. That's from Tadreese in New Jersey. And yeah, that's the one thing, and I didn't even bring it up in segment number 2, but when you said strip, fumble, recovery, all that good stuff, when you're talking about Max Crosby, ball security is going to be massive. Ball security is going to be major because of the elements. It's going to be massive for both teams, though, right? I mean, there could easily be a couple fumbles, a couple deflections off somebody's hands in the passing game, turn into an interception. Whoever, turns over the ball the least as well is going to win that game. The turnover battle, man, you got to win the turnover battle. So that's actually something I should have brought up in segment number 2, but I'm glad you mentioned it here in segment number 3. And again, man, enjoy the game with your son. That's going to be a whole lot of fun. And yeah, shout out to Raider Rob for giving some cool tips, man. I thought that was really cool of him. And again, hopefully on Monday, we'll be talking about a victory and a second victory in a row for the Silver and Black. Up next, we got a call from E-Rich in Rockland, Cali. He's calling to talk about the head coach and the process. Also has a few questions he'd like answered. Here he is, E-Rich in Rockland, California.
What up, Q? This is your boy E-Rich calling from Rockland, California. Hey, I just got done listening to your podcast for today. I just wanted to go over and discuss some of the stuff that you said about Josh McDaniels and the process and all that. I think you brought up a lot of good points, but I kind of want to debate it a little bit because, in my opinion, it's kind of like the new guy that comes to your office when he makes the same mistake over and over and over again. I get it. We're supposed to trust the process. We're supposed to believe in the new guy, but he's got to give me something to believe in, and he's making the same mistakes over and over and over again with these blown leads, When it happens once, it's kind of an anomaly. When it happens twice, okay, that's starting to become a trend. When it happens 3, 4, now 5 times, when does enough become enough, Like, when do we point to the finger and say, hey, this guy isn't learning from his mistakes. He's doing the same thing over and over again. And it's costing us games. We squeaked out that one with the Patriots, but I don't know. He's got to make me believe in him, and it's just a couple of things here and there with play calling and some decisions he made in the Chiefs game with, like, the timeout and all that kind of stuff. He hasn't really sold me to have belief that he is the future head coach of the Raiders, Just wanted to hear what you think.
Thank you so much for the call, my man, and I understand completely where you're coming from. And, one of the things I said is that Josh McDaniels as the head coach is a work in progress as well, right? I mean, the players are learning how not to lose. They're learning how to finish. Josh McDaniels is learning how not to lose and learn how to finish as well. And he's not going to come out and say that I'm learning too. But, you got to think about it. He's still learning. This is only his second time as a head coach, and we all know the first time didn't go too well. So I think that there's still a work in progress with him. I think he's got the goods to get it done. I think he's going to be able to figure it out. I mean, I've really taken a liking to Josh McDaniels. But, again, it doesn't matter that I like him. He's got to get it done and prove that he could be the guy. But just from him embracing the Raiders and who the Raiders are and the brand that is the Raiders, I don't know, something about him. I think he gets it. I think he understands, and he wants to do right by the fan base. That's why I'm kind of not really all over him like some people are. But it's a process for everybody, man. And again, that P word nobody likes, process, but that's exactly what it is. Again, thank you so much for that call, E-Rich. I appreciate you. Next up, I got a text from Dr. Dre in Florida. What up, Dre? Hey, he said, what's up, Q? It's Dr. Dre from Florida. Longtime listener, but never reached out to the show. Love listening to the podcast and radio show in podcast form because I usually can't catch it live because of the time difference. But I love the coverage you provide, especially being on the West Coast. You are my main source of coverage throughout the week, LOL. I wanted to get your thoughts on Nate Hobbs real quick. That's my guy, but I feel like he struggled since coming back from injury. He was mossed by Skolnick and struggled in general versus the Rams and gave up the big play to Myers and the 2-point conversion to the Patriots. Just want to get your thoughts on if it's just rust or what or from the injury. Sorry for the long text. Love what you do. Dr. Dre is out. Thank you so much for the text, my man. Appreciate you listening to the show, listening to the podcast, supporting it. It's awesome. And, yeah, I'm glad you brought up Nate Hobbs, man, because he's a guy that I'm excited about. He's a guy that I think is going to be a really good player. We were hyped up about him before the season started, but he hasn't been the same since he came back from injury. I think the first game he came back from injury, he was a lot better. I'm trying to remember who that was against. Can't remember exactly what week he came back, but I felt like he played really good that week 1. And, against the Chargers. Yeah, there it is. It was against the Chargers. It was the barbecue chicken game. And then he went to L.A. and played against the Rams, and I felt like he took a step back. And you're right. Against the Patriots, he didn't play well either. I had people tweeting at me like, what's the hell's going on with Nate Hobbs? He's got to figure it out, man. But he has taken I don't want to say a step back, but he hasn't been as sharp as I expected him to be since he returned from injury. So hopefully these final 3 games, he can step up and be the dude that we all expected him to be, because I think he's got it. I think he's got the raw talent. I think he's got ability. I like the fight in him. I like the physicality that he brings, but he's got to be able to be the guy, man. He can't be on the wrong end of these plays. And the last couple of games, he's really been on the wrong end of these plays. So thank you for that text. I do appreciate you. Just got time for a couple quick more. How about this call from Old Man Pete in the 818? He's calling to talk about the passing of Franco Harris and shares a few thoughts on the game as well. Here he is, Old Man Pete in the 818.
Hey, what's up, Q? This is Old Man Pete from the 818. Happy holidays. Hope you're doing well. Just wanted to call in and say, first and foremost, rest in paradise, Franco Harris. He was way before my time, but growing up in the 80s and 90s, I was a big fan of NFL films. Part of the main reason why I'm a Raiders fan, just seeing all those old clips. But yeah, seeing Franco Harris, those old Pittsburgh Steelers, I know that he was a legend and a great. So, rest in peace to him. And I know that the Steelers, they're going to be really emotional. That whole city is going to be really emotional on Sunday. So hopefully our guys are ready to go out there and play and do their thing. But yeah, just wanted to call and say rest in paradise, rest in peace, condolences to that family. And I know Sunday's going to be a big one. So go Raiders. Let's see if we can make something happen. Peace.
Thank you so much for the call, my man. And yeah, it's wild that he passed this week, right? He was finally about to get his flowers with the organization, finally about to get his jersey retired, finally going to be in the Ring of Honor. Only the third player to ever officially have his number retired there, even though there obviously is numbers that they don't wear anymore, like Terry Bradshaw and others, but they haven't officially retired the jerseys. And so for him to have that and know that it's also the week of the Immaculate Reception, the 50th anniversary of it, and really, it's crazy. I did an interview with him back in 2020 at Super Bowl 54, myself and Paul Catalina, when I was at ESPN Central Texas. And the day he passed, and the day we found out he passed, Wednesday, I actually went back and found that interview and played it on my radio show. I was going to play it on the podcast, but just didn't have enough time. We had the crossover edition and then didn't want to take up the time today to do it. But, maybe on Monday's show, not too sure how it's going to shake out. Or if not, well, I'll get to it at some point, maybe. But yeah, it's just crazy that this game meant so much, and he was such a huge figure in this game, and all of a sudden he passes when he's going to get his flowers and get everything happen at halftime. It's pretty incredible. It's crazy how things shake out, man, and it's just more evidence that tomorrow is never guaranteed, no matter what. On Tuesday, he was literally at TV stations in Pittsburgh talking about the Immaculate Reception, talking about Saturday's game, and then all of a sudden Wednesday morning we find out. And I woke up early. I woke up at like 5:30, and when I looked at my phone around 6 or so, it said Franco Harris had passed, and that was like 3 o'clock on the East Coast. So it's just incredible, man. It's nuts how you just never really know. You never really know. So thank you so much for that call. I do appreciate you. Let's close things out with a text from Raider 570. It says, "Yo, Q, first thought about the game is the cold weather, and I'm sure I'm not the only one worried about Derek Carr getting the snap and hanging on to the rock. We all know he don't play well in cold weather. However, there is something to be optimistic about, and that is Pickett, and the main concern with him entering the draft, his small hands. Hoping Max and Chandler could punch the ball out a couple times in the cold, and I ultimately think this game is going to go down to which quarterback could take care of the rock. Have a good holiday, my man. Keep doing what you do. Keep you and your family safe." That's Raider 570. Thank you for the text, my man. And yeah, Derek Carr has got to protect the ball. I think he's starting to do better in cold weather games, right? That was a narrative that we talked about all the time. He's not a very good player in cold weather games. I think he's starting to do better. Right? I mean, he won in Pittsburgh last year. I know it's September, though. But he's won some cold weather games that they had to have, right? I remember him going to Cleveland and playing that ugly game. He won that. He's won some games that are in the cold. He played against the Jets in the cold. I mean, he's done some things and actually won some games. So I think he's getting better at that. I know it's not ideal, though. And Kenny Pickett, he's a rookie. He's got the small hands. He's coming back from concussion, his second concussion he's had this year, which is scary. There's a lot of things in this game, man. A lot of things that are going to, boil down to, who can do what and who can protect the ball and who can run the ball and who can stop the run, right? So we'll see how it shakes out, but turnovers are definitely going to be a major factor in this game. Hopefully you have a great holiday as well. Matter of fact, Raider Nation, hopefully everyone has a fantastic holiday starting on Christmas Eve with a victory by the Silver and Black, and then you have a fantastic Christmas, and then boom, we talk again on Monday and get excited about the Raiders in a 2-game winning streak. That's ideal. That's the hope. We'll see how it all shakes out. So until Monday, Raider Nation, again, have a fantastic weekend. Have a fantastic holiday. Make sure you spend some great time with your family. Love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.